Welcome everyone to this Edit Girls interview with Bullet Train editor Elísabet Ronaldsdóttir. For anyone who's new to Edit Girls, it's a space where we share career stories and elevate the voices of female and gender diverse editors, not just in the film industry, but in across TV, branded content, advertising, and documentary. You can find us on editgirls.com, the website, on Instagram, editgirlsinsta, on Twitter at editgirls, edit_girls. I tried to make them all the same, but it wasn't so easy. We're on LinkedIn and we're on Facebook. We have a discussion group which is specifically for women and gender diverse editors to connect. So, Elísabet, thank you so much for being here and chatting with us.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's going to be, it's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to unpacking the movie. I'll do a little intro for you, and then I'll do a little intro for the film, and so we can get cracking. So, Elísabet is known for her incredible ability to edit high octane action movies whilst ensuring they have true depth and a heart. Her list of credits include John Wick, Shang-Chi, Netflix film Kate, which I watched last week and I absolutely loved it, Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, and her latest movie is Bullet Train. Bullet Train is a fast-paced action comedy set on a bullet train traveling from Tokyo to Kyoto, which I realized are anagrams of each other, which I quite like. The story is driven by a melting pot of characters, many of whom are assassins, whose stories all intertwine in this wild ride of a film. It's directed by David Leitch and edited by Elísabet. Ta-da! So like I said before, this chat might contain some spoilers because we're going to be really unpacking the film.
Oh, you're going to dive in.
I want to. Do you want? I kind of think so, but it's just maybe we don't, and maybe that was a false warning. But I feel like we should say there might be spoilers.
Yes, that's warning.
So Elísabet, I'd really like to start by setting the scene of where you are when you're editing.
I spent months editing in Iceland, all the way up to the director's cut. Then I went to LA, but the studio was kind of opening up again. But we were not allowed to be in the same room, me and the director, and we were like, that's not going to work. Not that he sits with me, he never does. But when we're having a discussion, we'd rather do, sometimes we go for a walk or something, walk the dogs and talk, but we felt that there were too many restrictions at the studio, and also a lot of people still wanted to work from home, like first and second assistant, and there is a certain comfort, specifically in this pandemic, to work from home, so that was really understandable. And so we decided everyone should be allowed to work from home. And then we just moved in together, me and the director and his wife, who is the producer, Kelly McCormick. So we just moved in together for 6 months. And
wow.
Yeah, but it was amazing. Sony rented, because they didn't at the time, they didn't live in LA, they lived in Las Vegas. So Sony rented a house. I can promise you, not for me, but for the producer director. Mm-hmm. And so it was really nice.
And then were you together when you were putting like the final parts together, or was that more the early stages of editing?
That was more, but also, so I was there until, I was in Iceland until like from February till June. Mm-hmm. And then end of June to December in LA. And then after Christmas, we did the finishing touches from here, like from Iceland.
Yeah, gotcha. So the movie itself and the intertwining narratives, it's not really, can I sort of say, like your standard beginning, middle, and end narrative that you kind of get that sense of where it's going exactly. There are lots of stories intertwining together. So how do you start approaching a story like that?
It's obviously based on a very famous, now at least, it's a really famous book, at least in Japan. And the script was amazing. And then it's shot and it ends on my table. And then you just have to try to make something that for the first thing makes sense because it's a bit chaotic. So many things are happening, kind of. But it's kind of just believing in emotional intelligence of the audience. So this movie is kind of driven by emotion, even though a lot of people don't have, I hear a lot about no substance and stuff, but for me, at least working on it, it was a lot about emotion, like how long we stayed with characters, how long we went away for side stories, flashbacks, like organizing every flashback, thinking, what is this flashback? Is it, yeah, okay, he's telling a story. He's remembering something. Oh, that's just a memory flash. Okay, we have a whole lifespan of a person. So each flashback had a different purpose, kind of, or, at least some of them. So, and then it's just pacing it right. A lot of the flashbacks moved around. We really reconstructed the whole opening. And I talk about it a lot and maybe too much now, but because I feel like I'm translating from a script to a moving image, and it's two very different languages. It's a language where a monologue in the script can become a look in the movie, not because the monologue is wrong in the script, but it's translated into the look that the actor gives on film. But he wouldn't give that look if that monologue wasn't in the script, if that makes sense. So it's not because it's unnecessary, it just takes fewer words in the movie. So sometimes dialogue can become redundant because, you have other things.
Yeah.
You have the visuals.
I know exactly what you mean. And like going back to the sense of like emotion and building like relationships with the characters. Which character did you sort of feel the strongest affinity with personally? Like, was there a character that you really, not that you would necessarily
I think almost everyone will connect to Prince. I love her monologue in the movie.
She's fantastic.
And I thought it was very on point somehow. But we want to be we want to be the lead in our own story and not be in someone else's story. So that was really nice. I liked that a lot, that her words.
You're kind of going sort of through like the relationship with the twins, with Lemon and Tangerine. I really found, obviously they're kind of like the comedy element. There's comedy throughout, but they very much are, the double act. But they still have a very heartfelt relationship together. Can you tell us a little bit about the moments, like you say, about looks and things like that? What were the little moments that helped really build in your mind and the decisions you made their relationship?
Well, I think because we start knowing them and they're like an old couple in a horrible relationship. They're just bickering, and it's obvious that Tangerine is kind of, I always saw Lemon as a bit of a autistic person, with his trains and
his Thomas,
and more vulnerable. And Tangerine has this, this guard, like a cool guard guarding himself, but also his brother. Turns out they are brothers, which is really, really sweet. But yeah, it's how much bad words can we say here? But I had to choose something not vulgar. But when things really started happening and they felt they were in dangers, you can see that they get closer and closer to each other. So you gave it a tiny bit of more of a time. So actually in the beginning, they're just spewing words, but then it kind of slows down through the movie where they start, realizing things are not as it should be. and that, yeah, there's a diesel on board. So yeah, then they kind of just slowing them down, not cut them as tight, linger a bit more. Yeah.
I think that's the kind of power that an editor has, that people who don't understand the intricacies of the job just don't get how they're being made to feel a certain way because you have made decisions on how the pacing is changing, and that's a prime example of that.
Yeah, no, and I love my job, but it is a collective job. You know, there are more people. So much comes through dialogue with the people in the room, if it's the director, the producer, and I always feel like the biggest part of my job is dialogue, just talking about things, like turning them around and wondering and talk about the characters. And that's what I love to do with both David and Kelly, just talk characters and story. And yeah.
So in many respects, it's not, you know, we always, maybe we talk a lot about being behind a computer and actually cutting, you know, things together, but that's such a small part of it. It's so much more about discussing the story. Do you, when you're having these conversations with your director and producer and the other people involved, are you writing notes? Like, how do you go at the end of the day, and then, and you know, if you were to divide up your working day, what percentage is spent talking and what percentage is spent actually, you know, putting the edit together, implementing
I wouldn't really know, but it's like if it's an 8-hour day, it's probably just max two hours editing, like physically on the keyboard. But well, I'm not saying I don't take notes. If it's something specific, I might write it down, not to forget it. But for me, if I can't remember the note, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? It's like, it goes for everyone. If you can't remember the note at the end of the day, it can't be that important, can it? So no, I don't write down notes. I don't. And I don't like it but I like to listen. You know what I mean? So I listen to the note. I can see the images in my head, and then we can talk about, is it doable? We can discuss it. But in my head, I've gone through all the scene, looked at the possibilities. So I don't have to write it down, because even if I forget it for some reason, like a busy day, if I go to that scene, it will come back to me right away, you know, so.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And then
this is a very personal thing, you know, like people just have different ways taking in information and digesting it. So please don't just stop taking notes or something. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it. I'm just saying we're different. So someone else might have a more visual, like, you know, writing, even just the thing of writing down can trick someone else's memory. So everyone has to find their own way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think each industry is different. Like sometimes when you're working on such a long piece, really, I mean, it's 2 hours, you know, it's over 2 hours long, and other people are doing, you know, 30-second ads. So it's a very different sort of process. Yes, it's still editing, but it's different. So when it comes to the film as a whole, I think I'd heard you mention before about how, in a way, editing the individual scenes is relatively straightforward. It's how they all come together as a whole. So when do you, once you've got all your scenes, your puzzle pieces, what do you start doing once, you know, the nuts and bolts of each scene is together?
So yeah, then you just watch it. And then you get it, just if you watch something and you can feel, oh, it's getting a bit loose there. Oh, why didn't I get that information earlier? Or wow, I don't want to get that information before this happens. You know, all of this stuff comes when you watch the movie. So I watch a lot. That's probably the other half of my working hour, is just watching stuff again and again, even the whole movie. Just because, yeah, so, but a lot changes when you start doing that, because for the first thing, there are also stuff within scenes sometimes that you just want to take out, and you have to find ways of changing it, because maybe people are, changing, seats or whatever. Like, how can I get around that? I love this stuff. Like, there's a scene in the end with the ladybug with the snake runs out, and there's the father and the daughter, and they're all like changing seats the whole time, and it just took forever. Plus there was a whole scene there that was just didn't matter anymore. It just didn't matter at this point in the movie. So how did just cutting that out and still getting them to switch seats, and it's a puzzle, and I have fun with it. So just trying to like squeeze it into something that flows and works, is delightful.
The dailies and the actors and how each person does things in their own way. Can you tell us a little bit about, who improvised, the most, or what each person's dailies kind of looked like and felt like?
Yeah, I mean, for the first thing, Jonathan Sella shot this movie. It's all beautiful. Like, even the dailies coming to us, they were the lot put on them at, on set. It just looked beautiful. It was like amazing. So it was a joy just watching, because it's a beautiful movie. Well, the award to ad-libbing goes absolutely to Lemon and Tangerine. This is another thing. Sometimes I don't remember the actor's name because I only use their character. I never use the actor's name. And I think it's because I don't want to think of them as anything else than the character I'm working with. So even if I'm talking about Lemon Bug,
That's a whole new character.
Ladybug. I just squeeze them together. But no, for example, if I'm talking about the ladybug or lemon or anyone, I don't want to be talking about the actor like, oh, he's a bit of a dork and he doesn't know, and he does, I feel that's weird. So I only speak characters.
Yeah.
But so Lemon and Tangerine actually absolutely have the biggest award for ad-libbing. They were hilarious. It was hard going through the dailies without just, I was tearing up. It was so funny. But yeah, they were, but their character also invited it, But it also work a bit harder, because
I was going to say, does it make it more enjoyable?
It was like, here's the blue, okay, we're gone.
Yeah,
but it's what was needed, and they did it so well. And yeah, that was just such high performance all the way through. Really great stuff. Ladybug, Brad Pitt did give us a lot of different versions for us to be able to build that character. And we did tests, like we tried to make him even more dorky, see, was that funny, was that working for that character or the story, or less? Like, what if we just go and make him really serious, So we could kind of play and just find the moment where we felt like, okay, it's a good place. So good. It's such a privilege to work with people that are so talented. They're amazing. But Prince has to be one of my favorite characters. But I also think it's interesting. This movie is about the father and the son. There's a lot of distractions, but they are the only ones with an arc, which is also why both me and David, and it was scripted as that, but we were kind of pushed into starting it differently, because Brad Pitt is a superstar. But in the end, it was just so obvious it had to be the father and the son, because they have an arc. They are the ones that change. No one else changes unless they die, but they don't change. So that was another thing. But and then in the script, it was all did I talk about that already, about the beginning of the script? It was
Oh
all
no, yeah, in terms of like how what
Yeah.
did the script look like? How different was the script to what the final?
Yeah. So, and again, it's not different from the script. It just needed a tiny bit different structure to tell the same thing, you know, because it's translation. Like if I'm translating from Icelandic to English, I sometimes have to switch words around or use less. Or if we're talking snow, it's like a whole bank of words I can use. So it's the same with going into the movie. I'm just translating that script with the material already someone else has produced for me, obviously, and with the vision from the director, you know, I'm always keeping that in mind. So I'm translating it into this movie image. And there we felt if it was chapter, for the first thing, we wouldn't meet Ladybug, our big movie star, because let's face it, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And all of as an editor, you also have to keep all of those things. You know the studio is going to come, like no freaking way we're waiting half an hour to see Ladybug. And the audience, most of the audience will also be annoyed by it. But it's still a great opening. It's just didn't really fulfill all our purposes. And when I intertwined them, we all got a bigger sense of fate because you see them bump into each other. It's not like, because in the chapters, you won't see it.
So because we go from the father and the son, you know, the elder and the father, that quite intense scene in the hospital, to Brad Pitt quite quickly. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Like you see it and you know, which is obviously why it works. But what other scenes did they have in between, like originally?
No, but if it was chapter, if we would have kept it in chapter, we would have followed Kimura on the train, the son on the train, all the way till he was set. Set by Prince.
Yeah.
Then it would go another chapter, and it would be Lemon and Tangerine. And you would see everything with Lemon and Tangerine, a much longer scenes as well, like where they're bickering, talking about lemons, tangerines. You know, the son wakes up, we have the flashback, they talk more. Oh, where's the bag? They can't find the bag. We have to find them. Then we would have cut to, I can't remember if it was Prince.
I see what you mean.
You know, so every their story. But the thing is, for the first thing, it just took too long. And we were struggling with length. It's an epic story, actually. A lot of substance, but we couldn't keep on for 3 hours. So, but as soon as I started intertwining it, you still got a bigger sense of fate. And also I really loved the opening because I always felt it was like the old special victim unit TV show. You see the crime and then it's like, there comes the police, you know. I felt that was our opening. Like
the things that stuck with me with the opening scene was the storytelling element of sound. Like before we see anything, we hear the life support machine, and so we instantly know where we are, what kind, you know, there's the role that sound has. And I'd love to get your sort of approach to sound within your storytelling, and how you sort of play around with sound effects and
no, I think they are extremely important part of that, you know, of telling the story. And we work, even though we haven't started sound design yet. We've been working with Mark Stokinger, who is an amazing, you know, Oscar nominated, even winning, I can't remember, like really good sound designer. And so, but we lay the sound, I just feel it has to be kind of a, you know, some kind of a soundscape. You're not going to send the movie mute for someone to view it. And you're not telling the right story if you do. So we work with sound and find sound bites, and we can also ask Mark. He's very willing to send us sounds. And then he comes in, and it's just so amazing. He designed so many amazing sounds for the movie. For example, just the train, and all the fights, and like he brings so much energy in.
I can imagine that you have a scene that you feel is working, and then his work just brings it to another level.
Absolutely. And that's why you love sitting in the mixing room, because it's just like, whoa, so good.
So what about things like music then? Because one of the scenes for me that the music, and again, it's such an integral part of their characters as well, is the West Ham stuff. And as a British person, I just instantly knew that they were West Ham supporters, because the I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles was playing like behind there. So I was kind of expecting that to kind of be revealed. That scene, which is it's very violent, but it's also very funny, where they're counting their kills. I feel just the audio level of the music and how that's mixed.
Yeah.
Makes
Frankie
it
Johnny mixed it. They are legends. Like they also mixed the Atomic Blonde. So yeah, no, it's all well done. Music, Tom Lewis, he's a freaking rock star. It's so amazing. And Blowing Bubbles, we had a huge discussion about it, like also the studio, everyone, because everyone loved it. But it was like, is anyone gonna realize? Because Americans might not be West Ham fans or know of them. And then we just thought, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, get it in. It's a great song. Yeah, exactly. So are you, so with the mix and with the design, is that happening as you go, or is that just like in a fell swoop?
No, it comes after, towards the end. It's an expensive process as well. I wanted to say, because you talked about the fun and the action, and this is something David Leitch, I've learned so much from him regarding this, especially in comedy. But even if it's not comedy, how do you give the audience allowance to enjoy violence? This is for me, it's a dance, but it's a very violent dance, So how can you give the audience allowance to enjoy it? So, and this was something we went through with Deadpool, and again here, but it doesn't matter, even in Atomic Blonde or John Wick, it's just like, how do you build up so the audience goes, okay, it's okay, I can relax and enjoy this, So that's always fun. And this is a very good example of how it's done, with the graphics, with the music, everything.
I think you're absolutely, like, it's so interesting about that, being able to enjoy violence, because I'm a horror fan, so I'm kind of okay with stuff, but I brought my dad along to see Bullet Train, and he was like, oh, I don't like anything too violent. He absolutely loved it, because again, you yes, there's blood and all of this, and but somehow in the tone, all the decisions that are made, the script obviously allows you to kind of...
No, it's like it's a collective work, but yeah, it matters to give people, not because violence is okay, but because we're in movie language, and this is a dance, no one is hurt, everything is choreographed. It isn't violent really until the sound comes on,
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to describe the tone of the movie, how would you describe Bullet Train?
No, I absolutely describe it as a comedy, action comedy. Yeah, but it's about luck and fate, and that's what I love the most about it. It's about luck, fate, like, why are we here? Should we be here? And I think it's so well done, in both in the book and the script. It's just so brilliantly done.
That really comes clear, I think, in the end, when we see the White Death and all his decisions that were made to try really hard to control his fate.
Yeah.
and then he couldn't. So in terms of endings and making sense of a film, how, because you move things around from the chapters, what challenges did you face in terms of making sure things, of course, were entertaining?
Well, one of the thing was, for example, when were we gonna reveal, because it was really up all the way up to the end, just before we are spoiling everything. I'm so sorry, but just before White Death goes down, that was the place where it was revealed that he was looking for Carver.
Mm-hmm.
He felt it was so weird. Why are we going through that train section? Why would he never like mention it there? You know, it just felt weird. Again, it's a film language, and it just felt like it was weird getting that information so late. And that was a bit of a challenge to have him say it there, because it's a huge line and you kind of, but I think it worked.
Mm-hmm.
With the help of a lot of backs.
Yeah, I think,
you know, putting the lines in their mouth and explosion and like hiding it, that no one was saying the dialogue that's actually being said there.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the way in which the flashback started to come together within that, to explain it, you know, the Bolivia job, okay, we understand, we've seen that at the start. Were those things scripted in that way, or did you have a
no, not there. No, that was just something that came in the editing process. And again, the flashbacks there are obviously have a purpose, and they had, but we also felt like if we're going to bring them, because we have so many flashbacks, like Bolivia, Johannesburg, and even the snap of Diesel. And it's not necessarily to remind the audience, it's more just to spice up the scene, really, not be stuck in talking headlands for too long. So, yeah, but I feel it comes together nicely, and, no one should be lost. Everyone should realize what's happening, I hope. But yeah, sometimes it's just good to spice up a scene as well.
I'm always really fascinated with the concept of like editing within the frame as well. So we always think about, we go from one shot to the next shot and next shot, and that's editing. But how much influence do you have where you say, look, this shot is working, but it would be great if we could also see this in it? What's the kind of conversations and communication you have?
Yeah, everyone in the room can bring those ideas. Mm-hmm. I just don't believe in owning ideas, because I don't know who got the idea. I might be the one throwing it out there, but it could come from from a discussion last week, or yesterday, or everything is built on everything. So I just think it's so important to have a healthy discussion. Bad ideas are my favorite thing, because they are the beginning of great ideas. You just have to be able to tackle them, go through them, take them off the table. But something just through the dialogue, like talking about bad ideas, can bring you something that is a really good idea. So I feel it's important to keep the dialogue going, and everyone should be able to bring in ideas. But you also have to be ready to understand your idea might not be great, which is fine.
It's about collaboration, isn't it? It's about being able to.
It's
ego. Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And that's why I love filmmaking so much, and if you don't like the collaboration, you might have to find another art form. But this is like thousands of people working on one movie. You better enjoy it. It's like you have to enjoy talking to all those people, and the more opinions people have, as long as they are within reason, as long as they're within what you think the director wants, it's welcomed. No one cares where a good idea comes from.
Tell us a bit about the sort of test screening process. Like, when do you feel ready to show the film to an audience, and what do you learn from those processes?
Well, no one is ever ready per se, but we are thrust into it, and which is good because we need to be. Otherwise we would probably still be doing some editing that movie. But so yeah, you do test screenings, and it's kind of nerve-wracking because you never know what kind of audience you end up with. Even if you screen the same movie, which we have, to different audiences, you get different ratings because that's just, that's just how it is. You can be lucky and a lot of people like the movie, or it's just a bad, not a bad, but not for your movie, like audience. So we did a lot of test screening. They were all really high, actually, on Bullet Train. People seem to love it in general. We got very high ratings, but we tested it so often. And one of the reasons is because there was so much ad-lib from Lemon and Tangerine. So there was also a decision made to try out different jokes. And then the audience, because it's a comedy, so they record the audience, and then you basically just look, are they laughing more here or there? But again, it's a lottery because it's a different audience. But yeah, I love sitting in the auditorium and watching the movie with people because you can feel the reactions. I do have problems with when all the meetings afterwards, like people between 23 and 22 and a half are not liking this movie. What can we do? Cut out Prince. It's like, okay, stop, slow down. So that's always a bit heavy. But at the same time, I do understand that people that put, 10, 20, 30, 40, 80, $100 million into a movie, they are going to want as many people as possible to see it. So I absolutely have respect for that. This is a money-making industry as well. But I love that Sony was willing to take the risk here, because it's a big risk to take. And I almost feel grateful for cinema in general, because it's a blockbuster movie. It's not an independent awards movie. It's a blockbuster, and taking that chance on a blockbuster is pretty big. So bravo, Sony. But I just want more studios to look at it and say, yeah, okay, we should probably take a big risk as well.
So
because like you said, it's not the complete, it's like a really weird story, and the pace of it is different from what I love the pace of the movie, but it's different from what you're used to. We slow completely down just before the third act. We know all of this, but we enjoyed doing it. It was just such a thrill.
I think that slow is one of my favorite parts, where we have the elder and he's there with Brad and the sun is coming up and all of the masked army, like, yeah, I think I mentioned it to you previously, but I absolutely love that. And I think that it's just very satisfying, that moment.
Yeah, right. I felt it was, and it never bothered me. I never felt, but there are people that, just, whatever. But I really enjoyed that. And that sunrise is visual effects, which I actually is the greatest visual effect in the movie. It's hard to do, like bringing the sun up and, of course, lighting and visual effects, but they have to match it and make it look real. And I think they did that really well. I have to say, I just enjoy when you're allowed to experiment, with both the story, with, all the way. And working with a director, producer who will appreciate and want to do it themselves. They like, yeah. But yeah, It was so much fun.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
brilliant. I mean, it looks like you had fun. It's one of those movies that like people had fun making this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's very obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel it definitely. Motherhood is a big part of the dynamic between career and life. What sort of stage of your career were you in when you had your first child, and how did
So I was 18, so I didn't have a stage, I didn't have a career. But I lived in Iceland. My family lived in another country at the time. But you know, it is what it is, and we are really good together, me and my firstborn. But then in the end, I had 4 kids. But yeah, so yeah, it's tough. There's no question about it. I've been single mom most of my time. Apparently, films aren't very good for relationship because you do work a lot. But I do love having my kids with me. The kids are not a burden, they're part of life. You know, we're not without them, they're the future. So we shouldn't alienate them from society, we should bring them with us. No, it's difficult because we all have different situations and stuff. But I just want to tell you, I got away with it, just bringing them in. And it wasn't always easy, but it gets easier because you get more and more used to also multitasking and stuff. But I just also feel we should be more demanding. I think it's time. Because it's a great step forward that men are becoming such a big part of their own, you know, family, taking care of their own kids. And so I think there should be room for us to step up and make the same demands. I know it's not easy. But anyway, just so you know, if you're working for me, I don't mind kids. And I sometimes joke about it because I work a lot in LA where everyone brings their dog to work. So think of your kids as dogs and bring them to work. And it's healthy. Kids are great. You know, there's nothing not creative about kids.
They come with a total like fresh perspective, like you said, they are the future. And
yeah, but maybe we just have to stop being so freaking perfect. Like everyone gets really nervous. I'm going to like a meeting. I'm meeting the director of my dreams. Like, and then you go, but you know, why? Because if that's how you have to behave, maybe it's not the director of your dream or the editor of your dream or the producer of your dreams. Maybe it's better just to bring all your mess. Like, oh, I've got all those kids and they're all gonna have to come with me. And if, you know, and if it's a good match, the producer will say, yeah, that's not a problem. We'll fix that, you know.
Do you feel as well like COVID has kind of given us that, you know, we've just been forced to be in each other's houses and see one another for the truth of who we are, what our lives are, who we, not a pretend.
Yeah, probably. No, but I also just think this era of perfectionism is hopefully over, you know. What's creative about perfectionism? What's beautiful about it's the imperfections in life that are interesting and beautiful. So why did we go through this whole era needing to be perfect? It's mind-blowing if you think about it. And I think it's very violent. Because no one can be, so impossible demand.
It's very true, and it's not good for everyone's mental health either.
No.
So, and again,
but it's so easy to talk, and I know it because I know everyone has different situation and like different characters and different bosses and whatnot. But I still think there are some core. I'm not talking about demanding a great hotel or a better car. That's all bullshit. But just demanding basic rights, like the right to take care of your children if something comes up, or bring them to work if something comes up. And I also think it's very healthy to bring your kids to work, because I think you get better grown-ups out of it, because they're kind of in touch with the reality from the beginning and not locked away from society, and taken out on Sundays, which is also weird. Because we used to always work with our children when we were farming the land or even digging the coals, even though that was like, we shouldn't have made children do that. But you know what I mean? They've been with us. And then suddenly when everything's got really comfortable, they were all put aside. And again, I'm not saying it. I need a daycare center. I need to get rid of those kids sometimes. Every woman or a father needs to get rid of it. I'm not talking about doing it every day unless you want, but I'm just saying if something comes up. But we should also be allowed to get time off away from our kids, And I think it's great for them to be in daycare centers and schools. I just don't think they should be any less welcome to the workplace than dogs.
I'm completely with you. I have a dog and a child, and I'm more than happy to have both of them at my office. If anyone has any questions for Elizabeth in the last sort of few minutes that we're all together, please just unmute yourself, pop your camera on, say hello, and ask away.
Thank you. It's been amazing. I'm going to be quick.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so 2 questions. At the beginning, you talked about sometimes dialogue can become redundant because of a look an actor gives. And I just wondered how frequently maybe did that happen on Bullet Train, and how did the director feel saying, actually, yeah, I'm going to ditch my lines for the look you want in the film?
Well, in Bullet Train, it didn't happen that much, but that we completely cut. But oof, there's a lot of dialogue that didn't make it to the movie. Sometimes because we didn't want information to be brought too early. And sometimes because it was just redundant. And it happens a lot. It happened a lot in John Wick. It happened in Atomic Blonde. It happens in every single movie you make, because you're working with a different language. This is so square, but just as an example, if you're reading a script, it could be, he reaches to the fridge, opens it, and says, there's no milk. You don't need that dialogue in a movie. He just opens, empty, boom, cut to the shop. He's grabbing a pot of milk, and oh, there was no milk in the fridge. You're not going to go, was there, wasn't there? The audience thankfully brings their brain, the most important, part of any storytelling, to the cinema. They're going to know. So if there isn't like a canyon between what you just did and what's the next clip, they will bridge it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I wondered, it was more, that was a good example you gave, but I wondered more about if you come up with something like that, is there usually a fight with the director, or do they get it?
Directors are as different as there are many. So I once worked with a director that could not get this. It's like, it's in the script, and he even didn't want to use a take, because I can't even remember. There are 2 different words for birds in Icelandic, and the actresses used a different word than was in the script. It was such a better take, but he was like, it's not in the script. And it's like, but there's nothing you can do about that. You just know in your heart, that's not your match. You got to go find someone else, But no, I would never argue. I might have to explain myself, why isn't this? And I might explain it. But I can't remember, aside from that, ever been asked to put it back.
And then if I've got time, just if you've got time to just say quickly, how did you get into editing?
Because I was always pregnant. I have 4 kids. And I always wanted in the beginning to become a cinema photographer, also because I'm a bit, in the clouds, and I just felt, it was just the essence of life, like cinema photography, like, light and shadow. Do we exist in the dark, kind of a thing. So I went to film school, but I just kept being pregnant. And it's really hard to control having a child, especially if you're alone, and a set of maybe 50 people or more waiting for you in the morning. It's too much stress, there's no way. I didn't see that happening when the second child came. And so I just moved graciously withdrew into the editing room, but I fell in love with the process. I never looked back. And I'm still so happy doing this. I really enjoy it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely questions, Lorna. Thank you.
Kim, thanks a lot for having this, because there's so much information. I'm mind blown. So Elizabeth, one thing that I admire in your editing work is that you kind of change action cinema and how fighting happens in the film. Because before, because I'm a big fan of action films, fighting on screen was just nice movements and just beating the shit out of each other. And then you bring in this new type of fighting where every punch, every move have a character, and there are beats in between that makes those fights more interesting and more engaging. What is your process of building that kind of a fight scene? For example, do you get all of these footage, or do you talk with director and have those moments and beats and you build it up? What is the process of having not just fighting on screen, but having these characters going at each other? What is the process of that?
Yeah, I don't want to take credit for this. I was a part of a very good team that changed the face of action, which is 87 North, that Chad Stahelski and David Leitch ran, even though they've split now, because every action, like it should be, and you probably know, it has to be choreographed really well, also just for safety reasons. You don't want a sudden extra punch in your face when you're, so everything is choreographed to the teeth. It's a dance. And so the process for me is just having the best producers who know that they will have to train actors for months to be able to do the moves, to keep the take longer, and work with directors who know where to put the camera, and choreographers that are top class. And then I just try not to ruin it, but I do, try just also respectfully, like watch it like 300 times just to get the timings right. But, but that's basically the least of it still. I mean, I just think Oscars should be begging stunt choreographers to come in, because I think what they are doing is beautiful and there's so much work, and I don't know of a movie that hasn't used a stunt performer in the past at least 2 years. So yeah.
Great question.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Hi, everyone. Anthony from the States. So sorry for my accent.
Oh, we love an
thanks
American accent.
Kidding. Thanks for having me, Elizabeth. Big fan of your work that I've seen, and I'm sure there's a lot of gems that I haven't. Lorna's question kind of made me think about this, and you might have answered my question in hers, or at least it seems related. But I'm wondering, because and again, I'm a producer, so I come at it with a different set of questions and obviously a different approach. But for you, would you say that, given some of the larger films you've done that might need to appeal to a global audience, versus including, I assume, Bullet Train, which I haven't been able to see yet, as compared to some of your smaller, I guess they're all character driven, as you touched on. So maybe ones with less action. How much, and I realize that there are as many producers as, there are as many directors as there are directorial styles. But how much do you delve outside for something that you realize has to have a certain appeal? How much does your approach, does your storytelling approach differ from, you know, how much does it differ from the way that you would generally approach it if you know that it needs to have a certain style? That's a lot of questions all in one, I guess. But
yeah.
Just curious about that.
I'm not sure I understand all of them, so you just tell me, but I'll try to start answering it, because
Sure.
yes, I think a lot about the audience. I don't think about reaching every single person on the planet, because that would all just be mediocre. But there are certain things I believe in, which I try to emphasize in my work, even though I have not the final say in anything. I try to keep things forward, and then you have a director, and then you have a producer, and then you have a studio. So, but there are certain things I really focus on. For example, with action movies, they tend to be very female. What is the word? Putting down female, you know, naked women,
misogynistic. Yeah.
Thank you. That was the word.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sounds better without my accent. So I if I don't cut all of it out in the first go, I will one by one, I'll take it out. There might be a 2-second shot somewhere left. And I don't misunderstand me. I don't have problems now, because now I'm working with the people I really, like working with, but for very good reasons. But I just don't think you should alienate half of the world and then say, oh, women aren't interested in action. Well, maybe they're not interested in tits on screen. There is a difference.
Yeah.
So for them to enjoy the action, why don't we take the misogyny out of it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I would actively work on to reach that audience.
Yeah.
But if boys between 12 and 13 and women between 68 and 70, it's like, whoa, we don't need to reach the whole world. And it's on Excel sheet. It's not even reality, those numbers. So
yeah,
how far should we go? So I always believe in the movie, and just stand by your movie as well. I believe you should always stand by, if you've done your best and you believe in it and your director believes in it, then stand by your director and the movie.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. I think the visual of you slowly cutting out, Elizabeth, the misogyny from a film is where I would love to end the chat, because I think it is just
That's
perfect
great.
and so true. I think a lot of times, like when it's like, women, I certainly, and majority of women that I know, we've grown up with stories where the lead is a man, and it's just the given that is the case. And to have stronger sort of female leads that men watch as well, movies like Blow and Kate, that men will watch as well, because it's a great movie, rather than that's just for women.
With Kate, because I was thinking, how do I edit this movie? Like, how are we doing this? She's American, she's in Japan, and it's like okay, how do we deal with this? And then I just thought, see, this is a very secret insight I've never told anyone, but I just thought, she's slaying her way through the patriarch to save the future, which is the little girl. So she sacrifices herself. There's so much drama in my head, but that's how I looked at it. Like, she's just slaying her way through the patriarch to save that girl, which is the future. So a very feministic action movie, quite violent.
Anyone who hasn't seen Kate, go and watch it. It is incredible.
But
Like,
this also, that's produced by Kelly McCormick, and Kelly McCormick at 87 North has, I think she has done amazing things for women in action, because she is the one that has been emphasizing on those really strong women characters, like Atomic Blonde, Charlize Theron, and now Prince, and obviously all those guys on the train in the book were men. So I'm very happy.
so was the Prince character originally a man?
Yeah.
Oh,
And the
okay.
Hornet was a man, and yeah.
I love, oh yeah, of course, the Hornet, yep. Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that.
So they were men in the book, and now they're women on screen. And I actually love, this is something that has been talked about within the feminist movement for a long time, especially among writers. And I'm so fascinated by it. And I really believe this is the way to go. That you just, to get rid of all those ideas of how nice women are, just write it as a man, and then you just change the name and the sex. You know, there is a certain tendency. It's changing slowly, thankfully. But I know of a director that hasn't been able to finance a movie because everyone thinks his character is too annoying. You know, not because like no one wants but for a woman. That's what they say, for a woman, too annoying for a woman.
There's so much bias that we I don't even think for women as well, you know, the bias that we have about certain characters and female characters, we don't even.
And we've only talked women now, but let's talk people of color, different religion, you know, there's a line, you know, a long line.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you. So nice seeing you all.
So much, everybody.
Some of your names.
Thank you, Elizabeth.